We've been telling one story, not in headlines, not in hype cycles, but in layers. Across the first 6 episodes of this series, we followed artificial intelligence from abstract theory to practical capability. We watched early ideas turn into research systems, and research systems slowly turn into tools that could recognise patterns, make predictions, and eventually generate language images and code. Each step felt incremental at the time, but together they built towards something much larger. For a long time that progress stayed mostly invisible. It lived inside research labs, academic papers, and enterprise systems used by specialists. AI was impressive, sometimes astonishing, but it still felt distant. Something happening over there rather than something shaping ordinary life. Episode 7 is about the moment that distance collapsed. That moment arrived in late 2022. On November the 30th, ChatGPT was released to the public, not as a technical demo, not as an enterprise-only product, not hidden behind developer documentation, but as a simple interface anyone could use. No setup, no manuals, no configuration, just a box and a blinking cursor. That design choice mattered more than most people realised at the time. It turned years of accumulated research into a shared public experience. For the first time, millions of people could speak to an AI in plain language and receive a coherent response back without needing to understand how the system worked underneath. Now, the system wasn't perfect, it made mistakes, it could hallucinate facts, misunderstand intent, or sound confident when it was wrong, but it was immediately useful. And usefulness is what pulls technology out of labs and into daily life. People used it to write emails, summarise documents, explain difficult concepts, plan trips, brainstorm ideas, and think through problems. Not as a novelty, but as a starting point. In many cases, it became the first place people turned when they were unsure how to begin. That public moment didn't come out of nowhere. By the early 2020s, large language models had already crossed important technical thresholds. They could translate languages, autocomplete paragraphs, and generate convincing text. GPT-3 in particular showed that scale alone could unlock surprising capabilities. But these systems lived behind friction, APIs, specialists, configuration, and deliberate intent. You didn't casually experiment with AI, you integrated it into products, pipelines, and workflows. That friction slowed cultural impact. Technology doesn't reshape society when it exists. It reshapes society when it becomes effortless, accessible, and easy to adopt at scale. ChatGPT removed that friction almost overnight. Then in March 2023, GPT-4 arrived. On the surface it looked like another model release, but underneath it marked a shift in reliability. GPT-4 could handle longer context, follow multi-step instructions more consistently, and reason through complex requests with fewer obvious failures. Tasks that previously broke systems outright now worked more often than not. And that subtle change mattered. When systems failed loudly, people stay cautious. When they fail quietly, people begin to trust. GPT-4 didn't eliminate errors, but it made them less obvious, and that changed behaviour in quiet but significant ways. People started relying on AI, not just to generate text, but to help think, to draft first versions, to explore options, to compress time. It became a background cognitive tool, always available, always ready to assist. That's when the change began to feel sudden. Drafts that once took hours appeared in seconds. Iteration became cheap. Experimentation became normal. Creative work felt the impact first as writers, designers, and researchers adapted their workflows and expectations. Education followed quickly as students and teachers adjusted in real time, then enterprise, and finally everyday personal use. What's striking in hindsight is how little ceremony accompanied this shift. There was no global announcement, no single moment everyone agreed on, no clear line between before and after. By the time many people noticed what was happening, AI was already woven into daily routines, habits, and decision-making processes. That's why it felt like the world changed overnight. This shift wasn't primarily about machines replacing people, it was about leverage. AI didn't remove human judgment, it amplified it. It allowed individuals and teams to explore more ideas faster, to test assumptions, to move from intention to output with fewer steps. When the cost of thinking changes, behaviour changes with it. But as AI entered everyday life, the edges became harder to ignore. Hallucinations, bias, overconfidence, systems that sounded fluent and confident even when they were wrong. And as reliability improved, those failures became more difficult to detect, especially for non-experts who assumed the system knew more than it did. These risks weren't theoretical, they showed up in classrooms, offices, hospitals and courtrooms. They showed up in decisions that mattered, made faster than ever before with less time to reflect. The most effective teams didn't panic, they adapted. Humans stayed firmly in the loop. Verification became essential. AI became a powerful tool but not an authority. The role of human judgment became more important, not less, as people learned when to trust the system and when to question it. This episode exists because once AI crossed into daily use, failure stopped being abstract. It became personal. It affected trust, credibility, education, work, and real decisions that carried consequences. And this is where the story turns. The next phase of this series is not about what AI can do, but what happens when it goes wrong, especially when the interface isn't a screen, but a voice. When tone, familiarity and emotion become part of the interaction. Because when technology learns to sound human, trust becomes a vulnerability. This moment marks the end of the first chapter of the AI story and the beginning of a more complex one, a chapter where capability alone is no longer the central question and where the human consequences of these systems matter as much as the technology itself. Understanding that transition is essential if we want to use AI responsibly, without being surprised by the risks that come with speed, scale and misplaced trust. If this series has been useful, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. In the next episode, we're turning to voice scams, AI misuse, and the challenge of safety in a world that wasn't ready. I'm Ian and this is AI Scrutinised. Thank you for watching.